Hey y'all! In this video, I'll be taking you all on a behind the scenes sewing session with me as I sew a custom lingerie set for myself for Valentine's Day. I'm sure most of you have come here from TikTok, but if you haven't, I'm the Lady Cordelia and this year I want you to learn how to sew. My content is centered around creating blueprints on how to create the garments of your dreams, but in this video, I will tell you exactly what patterns to use and I'll give you a pattern review at the end. I am very honest about the sewing process, so I am looking forward to sharing more about that with you. And for all of my projects, I start out by creating an inspo board full of ideas, and then I go straight to designing. And for my special Valentine's Day project, I came up with a basic stretch lace top with a matching lace thong. Now, I don't think sewing is huge in France as it is in the US, so it was kind of difficult searching for fabric. However, I was lucky to find this nice fabric at Mondale Tissue. And for those of you that are not in France, Mondale Tissue is the French equivalent to Joann's. I don't have much to say about Mondale Tissue, but one thing I will say is that I wish there was more options for clothing fabrics and not just home fabrics. And I wish that they wouldn't work at the speed of a snail. I had the same issue with Joann's, so I kind of already knew what to expect. It's much smaller than the typical Joann's, but the prices are pretty much the same. So if you did go to Joann's often, then your issues would be the same at Mondale Tissue. They're basically the same shop. So I chose this very cute black lace fabric and I have some matching elastic for the design. I got 1.5 yards of this lace fabric, 1.75 yards for this elastic trim, and then 1 yard for this black elastic that's going to connect to the side of the thongs with these bow rings. I decided to use a basic stretch bodice block to complete this look, and for the thongs, I purchased this pattern on Etsy. So let's get started with the project. So I've just finished cutting around the pattern. I cut a square, not too big, not too small either. And I'm going to be using these very, very small but sharp needles. You want to use something like this. You don't want to use the big bulky ones because we're working with this very delicate and stretch fabric. So you don't want to cause tension with like a rotary cutter or like your scissors. Even though we're going to be using those, I still want to minimize the amount of tension that's pulling on this while I'm cutting it. So I'll be using these sharp, thin needles, and I recommend that you do it too. Okay, so it's time for a break. I want to stress the importance of taking a break because I feel like people try to rush through the sewing projects and the process of it and normalize being fast. But in my opinion, nothing turns out good if it's rushed, so let's take a break. Okay, so I have decided to sew the underwear first. I'm gonna go watch her YouTube video / tutorial instructions to see how she does it. I pretty much already know how to sew the underwear, but I really wanna see how she does it and give you guys my opinion on her pattern. So yeah. Okay, y'all, so I just finished sewing the thongs and now I've moved on to sewing the front bodice. It's very important to me that I show you guys how to do a French seam because I really want, especially if you're going to recreate this look, I really want your garments to look very polished and not necessarily professional, but more so polished so that the inside looks just as good as the outside. And for delicate fabrics or lightweight fabrics, you really want to try to use a French seam. I feel like it's a bit more appropriate to do that instead of just doing a regular stitch, whether it's straight or zigzag, and calling it a day. So we are going to do a French seam, and I am going to pin at the shoulder slope and the side seams about a 1/4 inch. It can be anything, a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch. It depends on you, but my seams are going to be a 1/4 inch. So I'm going to pin at the shoulder slope and the side seam. I have my front bodice and back bodice down on the ground. I have the right sides facing me. The wrong sides are touching, and you're going to start by sewing on the right side of the fabric, flip it inside out, and then you're going to sew again at the wrong side of the fabric. Yeah, and then you flip it inside out, and then that is a French seam. So yeah, time to pin. Okay, another thing that I recommend that you guys do when sewing delicate fabric is that you take a piece of paper. It can be parchment paper or newspaper. I have newspaper right here, and you're gonna slide it right here at the beginning of the stitch that you're gonna make, because if you don't, this fabric here will get caught into the machine and it's really gonna cause like a big knot and it just create a huge mess. So to avoid that, I like to use paper at the beginning of the stitch. You don't have to make it as big as I did, but yeah, you slide it underneath there, bring your needle down, and then I'm gonna start it out sewing a straight stitch. And you see how it doesn't get caught into the machine? That's very, very important when it comes to sewing stretchy or delicate fabrics. So I started with a straight stitch, and now I am going to use a zigzag stitch to finish off the rest of this. So you just slide out that pin. Oh no, it's the wrong stitch. Okay, there we go. So you start out sewing your regular zigzag stitch, just like that. And you see nothing is getting caught into the machine, and that's very, very important. Okay, so after you guys have sewn at the shoulder slope and side seams, you want to remove the paper. You can use tweezers. I use tweezers to get out the little bits and pieces, but you want to remove the paper and then clip the seam so that it's smaller than your seam allowance, and then you're going to flip it inside out again so that the wrong sides is facing you, and then you're just going to repeat what we did earlier. You're going to pin at the shoulder slope and side seams about a 1/4 inch again for me, and then sew another seam and then flip it inside out, and then that will be the French seam. For this part, you can hem the bottom however you please, but for me, I am going to create a double folded hem here. I am gonna roll this about a 1/4 inch, and then I'm gonna roll it again, which is why it's called a double folded hem, and just pin it all the way around the whole bodice and sew it with a twin stitch needle. I have some leftover trim from the thongs, so what I'm going to do, instead of just hemming the sleeves and the neckline, I am going to take like the elastic and just sew that to the hem, just like I did with the thongs. Basically, you attach the elastic, fold it over, and then sew another stitch on top of it. So that's how I'm going to finish the top. So that's it for the sewing process. Now it's time for the review. I just want to say, for transparency, this is not a sponsored video. It's important to me that I mention that this is my genuine sewing experience. I'm just an ordinary girl who loves to sew and wants other people to have someone in the sewing community who has their back when it comes to this hobby. And if I want to achieve this, y'all need to see the whole sewing process in the most authentic way. So with that being said, for the Lisa panties, I chose to sew a size extra small, and I found the fit to be perfect. There was nothing I changed about the size, as it sits on my body pretty well without any irritation on my skin from the elastic. I haven't tried the other sizes, so I don't know how well they fit, obviously, but the extra small was fine for me. If you're going to make this too, I recommend paying close attention to the gusset and the waistband area. Those will be your primary area of concern in relation to the style of the design. Now for the instructions, it was only a YouTube video, which I have no problem with, and I have the link in the bio of this video in case you'd like to see her page. I think the instructions were fairly easy and straightforward. It's a pattern appropriate for all skill levels. If I was a beginner, I would have no problem understanding much when it comes to the sewing process. The only issue I had was during the part where you had to sew the gusset to the back panel. In the video, it was hard for me to see how she did it, but all I had to do was watch the part more carefully, and after that, it was smooth sailing. She had English subtitles, and the video was recorded well enough for you to see what's going on, so it was fun. Now, the price for the pattern was great. It was $4, and for that price, I got everything that I wanted. In 2026, I will be focusing on sewing a very curated wardrobe for myself, and I'm very happy that I have the knowledge to create so much for so little. I bought a yard of fabric, and once I got done with sewing the top, the first pair of thongs, and an extra mini skirt, I had enough scraps to make 6 extra pairs of underwear, and I think that's incredible for something that teaches you something. The reviews on Etsy were all 5 stars, and I will also give her 5 stars as well. I know for a fact that this will be one of my go-to patterns for underwear this year and onward. It satisfied all of my expectations and really made me feel like I had a little piece of luxury, but the luxury comes from being able to make my own clothes tailored specifically to me and no one else. And that feeling is what I'm searching for whenever I purchase sewing patterns. So that's it for this video. Thank you all who have been a part of my sewing journey. I hope this video inspired you to create something for this Valentine's Day. I hope you have a wonderful sewing experience, and if you have questions, please don't be afraid to comment or message me about anything, whether it's on YouTube or TikTok. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!